The son of the late and beloved comedians Jerry Stiller and Anne Meara, Ben Stiller was born with the funny business in his veins. Growing up in New York City, he knew this at an early age, performing plays at home and making videos by the time he was 10. And while early in his career he would write for shows like Saturday Night Live, Ben would go on to direct and star in a handful of hit films. He gave some of his best character actor performances in comedies, including There's Something About Mary, the Meet the Parents franchise, and Zoolander, which he also directed, alongside his pal Owen Wilson. The multi-talented celebrity has lived nearly his entire life in the public eye, yet there are still some things left to be uncovered about Ben Stiller. This video will cover plenty about Ben, from his early years with his comedian parents, his rise to fame, and much more here for you on Famous Life. Ben Edward Meara Stiller was born on November 30th, 1965 in New York City to parents the late Jerry Stiller and Anne Meara, who were both successful and beloved comedians. He was raised on the Upper West Side of Manhattan alongside his sister Amy in a Jewish family. While they were reportedly a quote-unquote never a very religious family and celebrated both Hanukkah and Christmas, a young Ben still had a bar mitzvah. His father's side had emigrated from Poland and Galicia, and while his mother Anne was not originally Jewish and was of Irish Catholic background, she converted to Judaism after marrying Jerry. When Ben was a kid, his parents often took him along on set, including the Mike Douglas show when he was 6. He thought a lot of his childhood was abnormal, stating, "In some ways it was a show business upbringing, a lot of traveling, a lot of late nights, not what you'd call traditional." Still, as you might expect, Ben's love of performing was clear from an early age, like when he and his older sister Amy would put on plays at home, with Ben squeezing into her tights for the Shakespeare pieces. He also displayed an interest in filmmaking as just a kid when he made home movies on his Super 8 camera with Amy and Friends. Amy would go on to appear in many of Ben's productions as grown-ups, including Reality Bites, Dodgeball, and Zoolander. When he was 9 years old, Ben made his actual acting debut on his mother's short-lived TV show Kate McShane, and in the 1970s, he performed with NYC's first all-children's theater, which was a troupe based out of Manhattan, where Ben played a handful of roles, including the lead in Clever Jack and the Magic Beanstalk. Soon after, while attending high school, Ben was inspired by the show Second City Television, making him realize he wanted to work in sketch comedy, a good prediction for himself at the time. However, you might not have known that while he was in high school, Ben was also a drummer in the post-punk band Capital Punishment, and they even released an album in 1982, reuniting more recently in 2018 to release a new EP. Ben spoke about his gig as a rocker, saying, "My high school class celebrated its 30th reunion and I saw a bunch of old friends again, the members of my old band called Capital Punishment. We even recorded an album, Roadkill. We weren't particularly good, but since we all met up again, we've had a couple of jam sessions and it's been a lot of fun playing the drums again." When he was 15, Stiller nabbed a one-line part on the TV soap opera Guiding Light, but in an interview he claimed his performance was poor. Ben attended the Cathedral School of St. John the Divine and graduated from the Calhoun School in New York in 1983. After a spell at UCLA, where he enrolled as a film student and dropped out after 9 months, he moved back to New York City from LA, where he would go through acting classes and begin auditioning while trying to find an agent. He scored a small part in Steven Spielberg's 1987 acclaimed film Empire of the Sun. Comedy was still calling for Ben. A short spoof film Stiller had created of The Color of Money, titled The Hustler of Money, caught the attention of Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels. SNL would air Ben's short in 1987, and 2 years later, the show offered him a spot as a writer. In 1989, Ben both wrote and appeared on Saturday Night Live as a performer, but since the series didn't want him to make short films anymore, he left after 4 episodes. By 1992, Stiller had his own show, The Ben Stiller Show, but it didn't go exactly as planned. The comedian hosts the series alongside Janine Garofalo and Andy Dick, but unfortunately, it received poor ratings, and despite winning an Emmy, it was canceled off for a year. While Ben was out of work for the time being, he was never one to be out of ideas. And after guest appearances on a handful of shows, including Friends, Ben decided to try something else and went on to direct the film Reality Bites, which was released in 1994 and also featured Stiller as a co-star. Danny DeVito was on board for the movie as the producer, and he would later produce Stiller's 2004 film Along Came Polly as well. During the mid-90s, Ben joined his parents in the movie Heavyweights and also appeared in flicks like Happy Gilmore, but his next big job would be in 1996 2006 when he directed the comedy The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey, Matthew Broderick, and Stiller appearing once again, this time as twins. The film received mixed reviews, but just around the corner was a role that would propel the comedian into the big leagues. It was Ben's starring role in the comedy There's Something About Mary in 1998 alongside Cameron Diaz and Matt Dillon, which proved to be the perfect showcase for his comedic talent. Not only was the movie a surprise hit, but it had the media calling Stiller the next big thing and would propel the actor into more widespread fame. Ben further proved himself in more serious roles such as dramas like Zero Effect and Permanent Midnight. But he's certainly more well known for his comic acting. His biggest roles seem to all follow a similar character, some sort of underdog who comes out on top, such as in Meet the Parents, for example. He has said about playing the nice guy and being one in real life too that being mean is just not my thing. It feels too cheap. I remember letting a magazine quote a few rash moments I made about red carpet photos. When I saw them in print, I felt almost ashamed. What's it got to do with me what some pop star is wearing? In 2000 was when Ben starred in Meet the Parents, which would be one of his most famous roles, playing a male nurse named Gaylord Greg Fokker opposite Robert De Niro. The movie was well received by critics, grossing over $330 million worldwide and also resulting in 2 sequels. In 2001, Ben directed his third feature film, Zoolander, in which he also starred in as the title character, a male model, Derek Zoolander. Prior to this, he'd created a couple of short films about the same character in the late 90s that were seemingly a hit. The feature movie had an array of celebrity cameos from Donald Trump to David Bowie to Paris Hilton and many others, while he co-starred with his pal Owen Wilson again. The two would join forces again soon for the movie The Royal Tenenbaums. In 2004, Stiller was in 6 movies, all comedies, and some of which were the highest grossing films yet. These included Starsky and Hutch, Envy, Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, Anchorman, Along Came Polly and Meet the Fockers, the sequel to Meet the Parents, which was the most successful of the bunch. A couple of years later, Ben had the lead role in Night at the Museum, which might not have been a critic's choice, but it earned over $115 million in only 10 days and spawned a sequel in 2009. From 2007 to 2010, Stiller was still working steadily on screen, starring in the rom-com The Heartbreak Kid and directing, co-writing, co-producing, and starring in the film Tropic Thunder alongside Robert Downey Jr. and Jack Black. Not to mention, he once again returned for the role of Greg Fokker in the critically panned but financially successful Little Fockers, the second sequel to Meet the Parents. After producing, directing, and starring in the film The Secret Life of Walter Mitty in 2013, Ben decided to take his career in a different direction. Ben said, "For me, the whole creative experience is much more fulfilling as a director. What I really like is that it's easier, a different pressure." While Ben no doubt took a hiatus from acting for the most part, as of early 2022, he said he's itching to return. It has been 5 or 6 years and he never thought he would be away from it for that long. According to the comedian, he's been talking a lot lately with Helen Childress, who wrote Reality Bites, and they're thinking about working together again on a movie she would write and he would direct and possibly act in. Well, it's no doubt his fans would love to see him return to the screen. In case you didn't know, Stiller has been called the leader of the Frat Pack as well, a core group of actors who have worked together in multiple films, including Jack Black, Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson, Steve Carell, and Paul Rudd. Stiller has been acknowledged as the leader because of his multiple cameos and for his consistent use of the other members in roles in films which he produces and directs. He's appeared the most with Owen Wilson in 12 films. In terms of Ben's personal life, he married wedding singer-actress Christine Taylor in 2000, and they have 2 children, Ella Olivia, who was born in 2002, and Quinlan Dempsey, who followed in 2005. While they had broken up at one point, when the pandemic came around in 2020, he and his estranged wife were still living apart and decided it would be best for Ben to move back into the family home. This was so he could see the kids during those early months of lockdowns. He opened up about this time, stating, "Then, over the course of time, it evolved. We were separated and got back together, and we're happy about that. It's been really wonderful for all of us. Unexpected and one of the things that came out of the pandemic." As for what Ben's up to right now, it's a little bit of a mystery, but after both of his parents passing, he claims to be working on a documentary about them, considering most of us only knew them as beloved comedians and performers as well. However, the documentary is still in the works and probably needs another year or so. Stiller also was working on directing a 9-episode show for Apple TV+, Severance, which aired in early 2022. It's clear that Ben Stiller has been working tirelessly in Hollywood since his childhood and proven that he had creativity and comedic genius in his veins. We can only wait and see what comes next for this multi-talented actor. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Famous Life and leave a comment for who you'd like us to feature next.